We flew direct with SAS from Manchester to Copenhagen, where we stayed for a few days prior to the cruise at the new Marriott Hotel on the waterside. We started our self-guided walking tour of Copenhagen at Rosenborg Castle. Dating originally from 1606, the castle was built for King Christian IV, who seems to have been responsible for most castles and palaces throughout Scandinavia. It now houses several Danish royal collections, including the crown jewels, but we weren't allowed to film in there. These guys are going to march to Amalienborg Palace to change the guard, so we've headed there first. Built in the middle of the 18th century, Amalienborg Palace consists of 4 separate palaces originally built for Danish noble families. Nearby is Frederick's Church, originally started at the same time as the palace, but only finished at the end of the 19th century. Looking in the opposite direction, we see Copenhagen's new opera house, opened in 2005 and one of the most expensive opera houses in the world. The guards currently on duty, getting ready to be relieved by the men marching over from Rosenborg. And here they are, bang on noon. It's just a short walk to Kongens Nytorv, site of the Danish National Theatre. That's trendy Nyhavn. We set off again for a stroll through the main shopping area of Copenhagen. Just about the most expensive cafe we've ever been in. Town Hall Square, and just across the street, Tivoli. Kronborg Castle in Helsingør, identified as Shakespeare's Elsinore, home of Hamlet. The ferries link Denmark with Sweden, which is just 4 kilometers away over there. The castle mainly dates from the late 17th century, far later than Hamlet's period. You can get married in the castle chapel. The stage in the courtyard is set up for a production of Hamlet, of course, starring Jude Law. No chance of tickets. A short stroll to the town centre and a look at a couple of churches. First, St. Maria's. Then the Domkirche, the cathedral. We've been incredibly adventurous and came to Helsingør by train from Copenhagen. So now we get the train from Helsingør to Hillerød, home of Frederiksborg Castle. Built as a royal palace in the early 17th century, this is Denmark's largest Renaissance palace. It now houses the Museum of National History. Sunday afternoon, and we've boarded Azamara Journey, ready to sail. And a family of swans is sailing round the dock beside us. As we sail away, a view of the spectacular bridge and tunnel link between Sweden and Denmark. Overnight, we sail to Kiel, where we will enter the Kiel Canal for a daytime crossing from the Baltic to the North Sea. And in the morning, from our balcony, views of the countryside of Schleswig-Holstein. Opened in 1895, the canal is 60 miles long and saves an average of 250 miles sailing round Denmark. At Rendsburg, the longest railway bridge in Europe also carries a transporter bridge mechanism. Approaching the locks at Brunsbüttel, where the canal enters the Elbe River and flows on into the North Sea. Early next morning, and we're sailing along the North Sea Canal into Amsterdam. Dam Square is the historic centre of Amsterdam, and that's the old Royal Palace. The National Monument. The tower is the Westerkerk, which is very close to the Anne Frank house. The house on the left with the black door is the Anne Frank house. The newer building on the right is the rest of the museum. The Beginhof was originally an institution for single women in a semi-religious order who didn't wish to retire entirely from the world. This is the Zuiderkerk. The Rembrandt House, now a museum. Amsterdam has a lot of houseboats. The Ouderkerke is the oldest church in Amsterdam, dating originally from the beginning of the 14th century. All of Rembrandt's children were christened here. It now finds itself in the middle of Amsterdam's red light district. The choir stall seats are decorated with carvings from the 14th century, illustrating Dutch proverbs. Beurs van Berlanga, dating from the beginning of the 20th century, was originally the commodities exchange. It's now a conference centre and performance space. Central Station, which means we're nearly back at the harbour front, and Azamara journey in late tonight. It's a full day sailing to Rouen, which will be our port for Paris, about 2 hours away by road. Before we get there, we've a chance to see the white cliffs of Dover through the rain. The coach drops us off near the Eiffel Tower. We decide to buy tickets for a hop-on, hop-off bus to see the most we can of Paris in a day.
La Seine en marchand de marron, une chambre au 5e étage, les cafés crème du matin.
First stop, the domed church of Les Invalides, where Napoleon is buried. And this is the main facade of Les Invalides.
C'était la gaieté Paris.
Alexander III Bridge.
C'était notre tendresse.
Grand Palais of the Great Exhibition. And a view across to the Place de la Concorde. This is the Louvre.
Paris, l'odeur de ton pavé de bois, de tes marronniers du bois.
We only had time for one hop-off, so we made that Notre Dame.
Je m'ennuie de toi, mon vieux.
The building was substantially completed by the early 14th century, but it's been knocked about a lot in the meantime. The carved reliefs around the ambulatory represent scenes from the life of Christ. After lunch, it's back on the bus and we're driving along the left bank past the bookstores. And now we're approaching the Place Vendôme. The Avenue des Champs-Élysées with the Arc de Triomphe. After a day at sea, we arrive at La Rochelle.
La mer qu'on voit danser le long des golfes clairs a des reflets d'argent. La mer.
Admiral Duperrey, who was born in the town. Lots of very good seafood restaurants, and we had an excellent lunch here.
Avec les anges si purs, la mer, bergère d'azur infinie. Voyez, près des étangs, ces grands roseaux mouillés. Voyez, ces oiseaux blancs et ces maisons rouillées. La mer.
The main square, Place Verdun, site of the bus station, as well as the town's 18th century cathedral.
La mer a bercé mon cœur pour la vie. La mer qu'on voit danser.
Nearby, a traditional French cafe with traditional French snooty service.
La mer, des reflets changeants sous la pluie.
The 19th century market hall.
Au ciel d'été, confond ces blancs moutons.
The town hall, and we bumped into a couple of wedding parties.
La mer, bergère d'azur infinie.
Back at the ship, we had to wait while they attempted to move the gangway.
Voyez, les oies blancs et ses maisons rouillées.
It's just a short hop overnight from La Rochelle to Bordeaux, which is 50 miles from the sea on the Garonne River. Bordeaux is essentially the world capital of wine and has some beautiful architecture that goes along with that. We didn't have much time to view that architecture because we'd pre-arranged a private tour to the vineyards around Saint-Emilion. Our driver and guide Marjorie took us first for a quick look at Chateau Petrus. The wines from this vineyard are so expensive that you have to wonder just what is the value of the acreage you can see in front of you, or even the value of just one bunch of grapes. Our visit is to Chateau Fontmine, which charges a lot less than Petrus for its product. In the winery, we get an explanation of the modern high-tech winemaking process.
Think another drink, plenty in the cellar when it's gone. Drink, drink, the glasses clink, making tinkly music till the dawn is breaking. Clang, clang, who cares a dang? What's the difference when you're on a spree? Over the teeth, behind the gums, look out stomach, here she comes. I have another drink on me.
There are quarried out caves under the vineyard dating back to Roman times, where they can store the wine in near perfect temperature and moisture conditions. And there's the shop, where you can arrange to have the vineyard's products shipped to your own home.
The glasses clink, like the anvil chorus, and my head is splitting.
The rest of the day is spent in Saint-Emilion, including a rather nice lunch.
Pink elephants are running after me. Though that stuff was smooth as silk, from now on I'll stick to milk. Nothing else to drink.
Saint-Emilion's parish church has a Romanesque half and a Gothic half. In the cloister there was a ceremony going on inducting a new member to the Jurade, an organisation dating back to the 12th century. The prices are per bottle in euros before tax. The troglodytic church. The cloister of the Cordeliers.
Drink, the glasses clink, making tinkly music till the dawn.
This used to be a communal laundry.
Who cares a dang? What's the difference when you're on a spree? Over the teeth, behind the gums, look out stomach, here she comes. I have another drink on me.
After a day at sea, we arrive in Vigo, the largest city in Galicia. Vigo's at the end of a long inlet, ideal for the crew to practice in the fast rescue boat. We've been to Vigo a few times in recent years, so we just went for a short stroll round the town. Another day at sea, and we're approaching Gibraltar in the early morning. It was National Day in Gibraltar, so everything was shut, and there wasn't a lot for us to do.
An admiration. Oh, even got a knitted flag.
Next day, it's the finals of the Battle of the Sexes. The two teams each had to build a boat that could carry a stated amount of cargo and stay afloat for a stated time.
We have 1 minute.
Oh! Seasick pills!
The keel is doing a good job.
Push it back out! Push it back out! No, push it out! No!
Haven't lost the sunken bit yet. 30 seconds, you have 30 seconds still to go. Ladies, I have to say.
The men's boat doesn't look as spectacular, but proved to be very stable.
That means you have until the little hand is on the so it could capsize but not sunken. It's still a bit more brown.
In spite of capsizing more than once, the Lady Azamara won.
You stayed afloat. You stayed afloat.
Early morning in Palma, Mallorca. Belver Castle overlooking the harbour. We've taken the ship's morning trip to Valdemossa, a village about 10 miles from Palma. Frédéric Chopin stayed here for a few weeks in the winter of 1838 to 39. He stayed in the old Carthusian monastery, which by this time was being let out as apartments. The monastery's chapel still survives. The monk's apothecary shop is kept as a museum. The monks had great views from their cells. This is the apartment that Chopin stayed in. Chopin composed this prelude while he was staying here, possibly using this piano. For the afternoon, we just went for a stroll for a couple of hours around Palma. Overnight, we reach Barcelona and the end of the cruise. We take the transfer coach to the airport, leave our luggage, and then get the airport bus into the city centre. It drops us off in the Platja Catalunya, the main square in central Barcelona. Las Ramblas, over 1 kilometre long, leads off from the square. At the other end is Christopher Columbus. And Barcelona's old harbour, nicely smartened up following the Olympics. Time to stroll back up Las Ramblas for lunch, calling in at an interesting little church on the way. And here we are at Los Caracolos, recommended to us by our fishmonger, a rabbit warren of a restaurant that you have to enter through the kitchen. A perfect way to end a wonderful cruise.
I would have loved to have gone. You guys are